Welcome to episode 663 of Apartment Hacker. This is Mike Bird of Apartment Hacker. It's my mission to tease out human potential in the multifamily space. So, very, very, very special shout out this evening. Video will actually come out tomorrow, but shout out to Sharon Coffin, somebody that participated in building the culture that we know at Radco today. Sharon was instrumental in creating the culture, being a part of orchestrating the culture, living the culture, being the culture, and I just owe a huge debt of gratitude to her and her contributions, even though she was an employee on a contract basis, a team member on a contract basis. In my mind, she was a team member through and through, and a partner in creating what we've been able to realize here at Radco Residential, in Radco Companies, One Radco. That being said, wanted to talk tonight about self-awareness and people managing themselves within a work environment. I think that work is an expression, if it's enjoyed in the right way, it's an expression of one's self. And as such, it needs to be self-directed. It's not something that the organization necessarily has to push on an individual. In my mind, the organization, I've said this for years and years and years, I think that organizations are set in place to serve people that serve it. And the byproduct of organizations that take that mindset is that employees get engaged. They become loyal, and business outcomes happen by default. So organizations get really deeply invested in individuals, and the byproduct of that is that business just really happens. It just happens. Now, that doesn't mean that processes and procedures and disciplines and routines don't have to be created and accountability set in place for those sorts of things. But if you really deeply invest in one's person, in one's being, first and foremost, the business just happens. So in order to do that, I think you have to set an environment where people feel compelled to take on that type of self-management on an individual basis. It's deeply complicated in the sense that creating environments where people feel compelled to take responsibility for their own education, for their own mentorship, for their own coaching. Many times we get into these environments where we set environments where people feel entitled, that the organization owes me something. The complication comes in the way of creating a culture or an environment where one feels compelled to go out and educate oneself because they want to reinforce the culture, they want to reinforce the power of the business because the business is giving to them, it's investing in them. In most cases, team members come to work for an organization and they feel like the organization owes them something because the organization just takes so much from them without giving back, without investing back into that particular person. So I think the differentiating factor, I've used a lot of words to get to this point, differentiating factor for companies in the future is if you deeply, deeply invest in the human being, first and foremost, before you invest in the accountant, before you invest in the maintenance technician, before you invest in the maintenance supervisor, property manager, assistant manager, etc., invest first in the team member. Recognize and understand their people first, and get deep into their lives to the extent they will let you, and understand what really motivates them, what they really desire out of life, not professionally, but personally first, professionally second. That will be the differentiating factor for organizations in the future. Do that, and you'll win. You'll win by a long stretch, as opposed to those organizations that just take from people. Take care. We'll talk to you again soon.